I could hear everything. Every word. Every whisper. My husband was leaning close to the doctor, speaking like I wasn't even in the room. And then I saw it. A piece of paper in his hand, trembling slightly as if it carried the weight of a life or death decision, and it said DNR. Do not resuscitate. My stomach dropped. I froze. My daughter, Lily, only 8, gripped my fingers and shook her head at me, as if to say, Mom, this isn't right. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. How could he do this? Right here, right now, while I was awake? We had never discussed it. Not once. And yet, there he was, signing away something I had every right to know about, like I was invisible. I wanted to scream, but my voice was stuck somewhere in my throat. The hospital room suddenly felt colder, more silent, every beep of the monitor and shuffle of the nurse's shoes echoing like a countdown to a disaster I couldn't stop. I remember thinking, maybe I misread the situation. Maybe he had some explanation, some reason that would make sense. But the look on Dr. Patel's face told me otherwise. His eyes were sharp, cautious, not the warm smile I remembered from earlier visits. And then came the question that sliced through the tension like a scalpel. Sir, who authorized you? It was almost surreal, watching him falter, the paper still in his hand. The nurse quietly moved behind the doctor and, in a gesture I didn't fully understand until later, gently but deliberately locked the door. That one small act made my heart pound. No interruptions, no distractions, just the three of us in this room where the air had become thick with secrets and unspoken truths. I kept thinking about Lily, her little hands holding mine, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. What must she be feeling right now? And me, how could someone I trusted completely make such a decision, in secret, while I sat there powerless? It felt like everything I knew about our family, about our life, was suddenly teetering on the edge. I want to ask you something, what would you do if you were me? If someone you loved could make a choice like this behind your back, could you stay calm? Could you even breathe? I had to watch everything unfold because there was no one else to stop it. And in that moment, the words on that paper became more than letters. They became a threat, a betrayal, a question I didn't have an answer to. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. I didn't even know he had been planning this. How could he do something so permanent while I was sitting right there, awake, watching him? Mark had always been meticulous about paperwork, but I never imagined he would use that habit to hide something so devastating. My mind raced as I tried to piece together what I was seeing. The DNR form in his hand wasn't just a slip of paper, it was a statement. A decision he had made entirely on his own, and the worst part? I wasn't included. Mark leaned closer to Dr. Patel, whispering urgently, his lips barely moving. I could see the tremor in his hand as he held the pen, and it made every nerve in my body tighten. I wanted to reach for the paper, snatch it from him, demand answers. But Lily's small hand in mine reminded me of one crucial fact: I had to stay calm, at least until I understood what I was dealing with. She looked at me with wide eyes, silent, yet her gaze screamed the question I couldn't yet put into words: Mom, why is he doing this? The hospital room felt smaller suddenly. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly, and every sound, the click of the pen, the shuffle of the nurse's shoes, even the soft hum of the air conditioning, was amplified. I tried to steady my breathing. I tried to convince myself there must be some explanation. But as Dr. Patel glanced down at the form, his expression shifted from professional neutrality to cautious concern. His hand lingered on the edge of the paper, and my heart sank. I couldn't help but flash back to little moments that didn't make sense until now: Mark insisting we didn't need to discuss health directives, brushing off my questions about wills and insurance, the quiet phone calls he'd taken in the middle of the night. None of it had seemed significant before. And yet, every detail now felt like a warning I had ignored. I leaned closer to Lily, whispering, "Stay calm, sweetheart. Let's just watch and see what happens." My words felt hollow, even to me. I could feel my own pulse pounding in my ears as Dr. Patel finally raised his gaze, locking eyes with Mark. And then came the question that froze me, "Sir, who authorized you?" Mark's face went pale. For the first time I saw a flicker of panic. His lips moved, forming words too softly for me to catch, but the tension in the room skyrocketed. Lily clutched my hand tighter, sensing the danger I was only beginning to understand. And then Nurse Rachel moved silently toward the door, her hand resting on the lock. The sound was almost inaudible, but my heart jumped. I realized, in that moment, that the door locking wasn't just a precaution. It was a signal. No one could leave until the truth came out. And what came next? I had no idea, but I knew it would change everything. I kept telling myself I must be imagining it. Maybe I had misread the entire situation. But the DNR form in his hand said it all, and Mark's evasive whispers made my stomach churn. How could someone you've trusted for over a decade suddenly make a decision like this, alone, without telling you, without even considering your feelings? The more I watched him, the more the betrayal cut deep, sharper than I could have imagined. Dr. Patel's gaze didn't waver. His eyes were calm, but there was a weight behind them, an insistence that the truth would come out. "Sir," he said again, firmer this time, "who authorized this?" Mark's hand trembled as he held the paper. His confident, casual demeanor from earlier visits had evaporated entirely. He tried to deflect, mumbling something about prior discussions he thought had taken place. But the doctor's steady stare made it clear that excuses wouldn't hold. I felt Lily tug at my fingers, whispering, "Mom, he's lying." My daughter's intuition was always sharp, but hearing it from her 8-year-old voice made it even more terrifying. My mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. I remembered the small signs I had brushed off, Mark insisting that we didn't need to discuss certain health forms, the mysterious phone calls late at night, his sudden insistence that paperwork was all set. All of it clicked now. He had been planning this for weeks, maybe months, and I had been completely blind to it. The room felt like it was closing in on us. The low hum of the air conditioning, the soft beep of the monitor, the quiet shuffle of Nurse Rachel's shoes, all of it sounded louder than it should have. I could feel my chest tighten as Mark stammered, trying to explain, trying to regain control. I wanted to scream at him, demand that he admit the truth, but I couldn't risk making things worse before knowing exactly what was happening. Dr. Patel leaned back slightly, crossing his arms, and waited. The tension was unbearable. Then came a moment I'll never forget. Mark's hand started to shake more noticeably, the pen hovering over the paper, as if he wasn't sure he could continue. The mask of confidence he always wore was gone. And then, in a whisper I barely caught, he muttered, I thought I could manage this." I glanced down at Lily. She was pale, eyes wide, gripping my hand like she was trying to anchor both of us to reality. And then my own eyes caught a subtle movement from Nurse Rachel. The faint click of the door lock sounded again, almost like the final warning bell. I realized the full weight of what we were trapped in. The room was sealed, the truth had to come out, and Mark had nowhere to hide. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I noticed something in his behavior, a flicker of panic in his eyes that hinted at a secret even deeper than the DNR itself. I had to know why. Why would he sign something like this without even telling me? My hand shook as I watched Mark fumble with the pen, his face pale and sweating under the fluorescent hospital lights. Every second that passed made my pulse race faster. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, as if it knew the secret we were about to uncover. Lily clung to my fingers, her small face pressed against my arm, sensing the danger before I fully did. Dr. Patel leaned forward, his voice calm but insistent. "Sir, we need to verify who actually authorized this DNR. The patient or the legal guardian must sign. No exceptions." Mark's confident mask was gone now, replaced by a flash of desperation. He stammered, trying to come up with an excuse, muttering something about prior conversations or assumed consent, but his words sounded hollow even to him. Every lie he attempted only tightened the tension in the room. I could see it in his eyes. He hadn't anticipated anyone else being here, watching, questioning, challenging him. He thought he could quietly execute his plan without consequences, without confrontation. But the truth was sitting right across from him. Me. Awake, aware, and unwilling to stay silent. And Lily's presence made it impossible for him to maintain his act. Nurse Rachel's hand lingered near the door, the lock a silent warning, no interruptions, no escape. Her eyes flicked between Mark and Dr. Patel, observant and steady, making it clear that every move was being watched. I felt my anger surge. How could someone you've loved for over a decade betray you like this, in a place meant for healing? How could he put our family, our lives, in such a precarious position without a single conversation with me? Mark's voice cracked, a whisper of panic slipping through. I thought I was doing what was best. His words hung in the air, empty of conviction, full of fear. I could feel my own rage mixing with the relief that at least the law and the hospital rules were on my side. This wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was a reckless gamble with our lives. I leaned forward, gripping Lily's hand tightly, my heart pounding in my chest. I realized then that the room was no longer just a hospital room, it was a battlefield of trust, authority, and secrets. Every second brought us closer to a revelation that none of us were prepared for. And then Dr. Patel's voice cut through the suffocating tension, calm yet immovable. Sir, without proper authorization, this form is invalid. That signature means nothing. Mark's eyes widened, a flicker of horror crossing his face. And in that instant, I understood that nothing would ever be the same again. But what he did next, what he tried to say, to do, to cover up, would shock me to my core. The room was silent for a moment, the kind of silence that presses on your chest and makes your heartbeat echo in your ears. Mark's attempt to assert control, to make a life-or-death decision behind my back, had failed, but the damage was already done. I stared at him, my mind racing through every memory of our years together, trying to reconcile the husband I thought I knew with the man who had so casually put our family at risk. Dr. Patel's voice broke the quiet, calm but firm. Without proper authorization, the DNR form is invalid. The patient's consent is required. Legally, this cannot proceed. Relief and shock collided inside me. Relief that I could still protect myself, protect Lily, and shock that the man I trusted the most had even considered signing something like this without me. Nurse Rachel's hand lingered near the door, her slight nod acknowledging the tension had reached its peak. The lock had kept us contained, yes, but it had also kept the truth exposed. I looked down at Lily, still gripping my fingers, her eyes wide and questioning. Mom, will he ever? Her words trailed off, and I felt a pang of guilt and sorrow. I wanted to tell her that everything would be okay, but I couldn't lie. The trust we had in Mark, in our family's safety, had been fractured. I realized then that protecting ourselves wasn't just about following hospital protocol, it was about vigilance, about recognizing the warning signs even in people you love most. Mark's face was pale, his usual arrogance replaced with the stark reality of his failed plan. I don't know if he truly understood the consequences of his actions, or if he ever would. But in that moment, I felt something shift inside me, a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. I would not allow fear or betrayal to silence me. I would speak up, I would protect my family, and I would not allow anyone, even someone I loved, to make decisions over my life without my knowledge. As the nurse quietly unlocked the door and the room returned to a semblance of normalcy, I felt a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and lingering dread. The DNR form was meaningless now, but the lesson it carried would remain with me forever. Trust must be earned, transparency is non-negotiable, and vigilance can never be abandoned. I want you to think about this. How well do you really know the people closest to you? What secrets might be hidden behind the smiles, the whispered reassurances, the quiet promises? And if something like this ever happens to you, would you have the courage to stand up, to confront it, to protect yourself and your loved ones? Because in the end, it's not just about the paperwork, or the hospital rules, or even the life or death decision itself, it's about the truth, the courage to face it, and the strength to never let anyone take it from you.